I think eventually humans will go to Mars. I think that is for sure. What we will do there is not yet certain. It may be that we will explore Mars the way we explore, say, Antarctica, with small research bases that operate for a long period of time. It may be that we will go to Mars and really establish a whole new civilization on a new world. One sort of funny aspect of studying Mars is there is a desert, an extreme desert. And as we warm up the Earth in the next few decades, places like this, the Mojave, will become more and more Mars-like. So in a paradoxical way, by studying Mars, we may be seeing, in a sense, the future of places here on Earth. It's an unfortunate comparison. We don't know how Mars will figure into our future. We don't know what the potential of it is. The first step must be to investigate Mars, to investigate its biological history, and to determine what possible futures there may be. In the extreme deserts, dry deserts, life has to adapt to the dry conditions, and those are the kind of conditions that we think prevailed on Mars through most of its history. So in dry deserts like this, we can learn lessons of how life could have survived on Mars. A lot of the landscapes in a desert like this are similar to what we see on Mars. They're evidence of water gone, evidence of volcanic activity past. We see it here in the Mojave. We see it on Mars as well. Here we're doing some experiments with a sophisticated instrument that Henry invented to test the strength of the soil. We see these crusts on Mars, salt crusts. Again, this is a model for how life could have survived on Mars, even when conditions were very dry. The organisms may have made a mat and created little tiny colonies inside little tiny domes of microbial construction, the same way they're doing in the desert here.
Okay, so this is 15, so 7.5.
Oh, what? 7.414.
Right through the bush!
All right.
The place we're sitting now is the driest part of the Mojave. Predictions are it will become even drier in the next 20 years as a result of global warming. What will this place look like? Some of our work might indicate what that might look like. So in a sense, we are making the deserts on Earth more like Mars. And so our studies of Mars are informing us what we're doing here on our own planet.
Don't go down more than, well, in our case, like 2 or 3 inches. Okay?
But Mars is pretty exciting. I have a chance to go, but I have to leave immediately. I'll call my wife from the airport. Let her know I'll be back sometime.
Would you like to go there?
I don't know.
You would go. You would go.
Yeah,
Yes.
I would want you to.
Together,
Yeah.
Yes.
both of you.
Yeah.
Not afraid?
Mm-mm.
Oh, I would definitely go to Mars in a second. When I was a youngster and was watching the Apollo space programs and man landing on the moon, I was so excited about it, and I kept telling everybody I knew that I was going to be the first woman on Mars. That was my goal. Now, if I can just get on board to go, it'll be perfect.
So the real question about life on Mars is not merely, is there life on Mars or was there life on Mars, but was there a second separate genesis of life on Mars? What we hope to find is a difference, something different, some different way of doing genetics, some different way of doing biochemistry. That would be exciting. The other implication of finding a second genesis on Mars is that it would tell us that if life started twice right here in our own little solar system, 2 examples, then clearly the universe is full of life, that life is a common phenomenon. The notion of terraforming Mars is the idea of bringing Mars back to life. If Mars had an early period when it was biological, then clearly it's not now. And there is some thought that we could restore those biological conditions. And the challenge of doing that is effectively the challenge of warming up a planet. We've done calculations that show if we were to do exactly what we're doing on Earth, but instead did it on Mars, putting in the atmosphere super greenhouse gases, then Mars would warm up quite rapidly. Water would flow, rivers, lakes, rain. If there was Martian life, it would come back out of hibernation or emerge from the subsurface. If there's no life, you could introduce life from Earth, and Mars could once again be a planet full of life. Now, it wouldn't be full of animal life or human life because the oxygen level would be very low. But it'd be a good place for plants and bacteria and some invertebrates. Over time, those plants could build up oxygen and it could be more suitable for animals. That's a long, long time.
Our first room is the airlock. This is necessary to equalize the pressure from the Martian atmosphere to an Earth-like atmosphere that humans can survive in. Now we step into the EVA preparation room. This is where we don and doff all of our equipment to go outside. It's very important that we keep all this equipment in this room because of all the dust on Mars. You have to wear these suits all the time when you are outside.
Why?
The pressure on Mars is extremely low. The atmosphere is entirely unbreathable. It's primarily carbon dioxide. And the temperatures are extremely cold. They're well below freezing. So the suits are definitely necessary. This is your first line of defense against the Martian atmosphere. And they're difficult to put on and maintain, but you have to pay very close attention. You can't even make one mistake with this, or you will die.
So it's not a very funny life up there. No?
No, definitely not. I mean, even when the early explorers were crossing oceans, they didn't have to worry about their basic necessities like air and water and temperature.
Would you go there if you could to Mars?
Definitely. Without hesitation. I would go there instantly. It's been a dream of mine since childhood. So, yep, I'd never say no. I know it would be extremely dangerous. The radiation would probably take its toll in terms of cancer and sterility. And there's a good chance that you won't make it back. But someone's got to do it. You can see the dust already on them. It's just the dust gets everywhere and into everything. Now we step into the science area. These cabinets have all of our equipment for chemistry studies, geologic studies, biological studies. This is where we would take samples and analyze them. So we can learn about the geology, the origin of the rocks, if they've possibly been exposed to water. Going to Mars for the sake of going to Mars it's a great idea, but the science is definitely the biggest priority. So we can learn about our origins. You can really hear the wind howling out there. It would look a lot like this. Just some stratigraphic layers and rocks lying around everywhere and the wind constantly blowing. You have a lot of dust storms out there too, global dust storms sometimes that last for months. That would be extremely difficult to go out on EVA on because you would get lost and the fines would just get everywhere. So that would be pretty difficult if there was a big global dust storm and you were stuck inside for months at a time. That would be quite a challenge. You wouldn't even be able to see out your window. You wouldn't be able to see anything. The sky is different too. It's pink, and there's occasional really, really high clouds, but generally it would just be a cloudless pink sky, the same color as the landscape. I think we do need to go to Mars. It's, as Stephen Hawking said, I think it's essential for the survival of mankind. I mean, there's billions and billions of people on this planet conflicting all the time, and all it takes is one crazy person to start nuclear holocaust. Or I mean, there's always issues with climate change and disease and all these things that are looming over us. It's the destruction of the human race. I think it's going to be like nothing else humanity has ever seen. We'll be on an entirely different planet with technology that no one's ever dreamed of. But it could definitely be a utopian society. Everybody's going to have to learn to get along and cooperate, because the only other option is death.
These round inclusions in here, I think, are similar to the blueberries that the twin rovers found on Mars.
I think it'll evolve into an entirely new society and civilization and culture, like nothing we've ever seen before, because it's like no place we've ever been before. Yep, I dream about it all the time. I think about it, I stare out the window and daydream about it. I dream about it even, sometimes when I'm asleep. Just walking on it, being on it. Just going there and just looking around and walking around and experiencing Mars.
The astronauts, after having completed what may have been a 6-month journey through space, arrive at Mars, and their initial feeling would be one of elation, of course, and then they would also have this undercurrent of depression because Mars is a very desolate place, which would be kind of a conflicting feeling for them. Then, as they began to unpack all of their equipment, they'd realize that they were fulfilling this dream of being on Mars and completing their life's work. This feeling that they would have would elevate almost to a feeling of euphoria. They would evidently be very happy, and this would carry them into the beginning of their exploration. What we see here is an image of the first landed habitat. It would carry the 6 crew members for the first mission to Mars. On the left-hand side is a rover vehicle, and on the right-hand side is an inflatable habitat that would be used as a greenhouse. Now, this is the front door of the habitat. The front door, just the same as the front door to your home, where you enter into it. We see these gun-like devices here on the wall that they use for squirting air at high pressure to remove Mars dust. Dust would be extremely dangerous. It is said that the dust would be a showstopper in some senses because it is possible that breathing it in could result in a silicosis-like disease. Also because the dust is so fine, the dust can get into all kinds of machinery and perhaps cause failures that would be catastrophic. Crew members, when they finish removing their spacesuits, one of the first things they'll see is a view of the medical bay to the right and then through to the laboratory there. Because they are so far from Earth, they have all of the equipment that they need for pretty much any medical emergency. They can do everything from simple exams to major surgery. The crew living spaces are all on the upper deck of the habitat. They have these little, we call them bunks, which means actually a basic unified crew compartment. Each one would be able to be closed off so that it would be acoustically tight. At the center of this whole habitat area is the table where the dining table where they would eat, and the screen where they would receive briefings from Earth. Perhaps most importantly, have conversations with family members. It would be time delayed, so they would never be able to carry on a conversation. It would be as though I would say something and then I'd have to sit and wait 20 minutes for you to respond to me. They'll have the ability to receive TV images, news from networks all over the world. And furthermore, if they have the desire to, they can send and receive email. When they first arrive on Mars, crew members are going to accumulate some samples, and then they would get into the longer-range planned exploration of the surrounding area much beyond the immediate landing site, especially looking for things like water content or chemicals that may indicate the presence of present or past life. I tend to think of it as being the beginning of a new branch of humanity, perhaps the beginning of speciation, whereas we are Homo sapiens on arrival on Mars, and maybe we are now beginning to bifurcate into something else. It would be, an incredibly profound moment because this is a break point.
Would you go to Mars?
I would go in a heartbeat. I wouldn't stay though, because I'm one of those persons who has, I've been born and raised on Earth, and I like being able to open my door and step out and hear the birds and such as that, and I would miss that too much. I have a burning desire to go to Mars, but I don't think that I'd ever want to stay there. But there are people who I know who would like to go to Mars and stay there. Not me.
When we're out on the lava fields and we're trying to find likely sites to study, we just walk. I have based my entire life's work on the notion that there was going to be life somewhere out there. And Mars is our closest, best hope in this solar system. You know, I grew up wanting to cruise the galaxy in a spaceship and go look for life forms. So my substitute for being able to do that childhood dream is really to work with what I can reach. And what I can reach are these extreme environments on Earth, and what I can think about and plan for is the potential for finding life on Mars. I think that the potential is very high. This is the kind of feature that we are really interested in, these little protected cavelets. On these bare-looking rocks, even though they look like nobody is at home, if we took samples of this and we looked at them under the scanning electron microscope, they would be filled with microorganisms. So this is the kind of microhabitat environment that we are studying in combination with the tubes. One of the important things about lava tubes is that they are an analog or a matching comparison here on Earth for a kind of feature that we're pretty sure is all over Mars. One of the interesting things that we know about Mars already from the orbital photographs that we have is that there is a lot of volcanic terrain on the planet. There are many, many lava tubes on the surface of Mars. So we're focusing on those because we have such wonderful matching examples here on Earth that we can study. And we're using it as an analog or a comparison to all of the tubes that we can see on Mars. If life develops long enough on a planet, I believe it's bound to produce intelligent species. But I think that the chances are good that they're out there. My belief about what would happen to us psychologically, emotionally, and philosophically if we were able to confirm that there's another intelligent species somewhere in our universe would be that we would finally have to come to grips with becoming a mature species. Right now, we're kind of like a spoiled only child that thinks it's the center of the universe. We probably aren't. And maybe someday we'll actually meet a sibling species. And at that point, I think it will broaden our horizons. Being able to actually converse and contact and experience something of other minds, it would be an experience that would transform us as a species. Enthusiastic.
Probably capture some of this
dust
stuff.
Yeah, so yeah.
If it doesn't happen within a day, forget about it.
Chemists are so impatient. Where we actually looked at how would you take a lava tube and how would you make it into a habitat? You know, what is the minimum amount of technological development you would need in order to actually convert this to a human habitat? You know, it provides a lot of radiation protection.
Yeah, sure.
That's one of the biggest problems for humans on Mars.
Well, yeah.
This provides a lot more protection from the exterior than you would imagine. So there are all sorts of organisms that can live in here when they can't live in the above-ground desert. We're interested in them not only on Earth, but because we see evidences of lots of them on Mars. The question is, can they act as repositories for, you know, ancient remains of life or organic materials there? So, and some of them have permanent ices, and clearly there are microorganisms trapped in those ices. There's still a lot of science to be done to really nail down just how a lot of these organisms are making their living, you know, in environments like this, and how to try to look for them on Mars.
one thing is, some people say I'm crazy as hell. Some people say I'm a fucking nerd. Some people say, oh man, take pictures.
Do we need to go to Mars?
I think we need to do something. You know, it's just too much going on here. We might destroy this one pretty soon. You know, I don't know. Well, I actually want to be the first person to walk on Mars. Like, I want to be in the history books. You know, so if I get a chance to go, I'll either die on the way, and they'll remember me for that, or, you know, it'll be successful and I'll be like Neil Armstrong, you know, first man to walk on Mars.
I think that the reason a lot of people would be against going to Mars is because they're afraid. And once you get over that fear of the unknown, there's just like basically where I'm at, like I'm not afraid. I just, at a moment's notice, I would spring into, like I would go. Like if they told me, you know, there's only a 70% chance you would make it to Mars and a 40% chance you'd make it back, I would still strap in. I would go.
Why?
I want to go. I just want to go. We need to have some type of dream, something that we will all want to achieve it. And with the dream, it could be the tie that binds you. And if I could have it my way, that dream would be going to Mars.
And you think you wouldn't miss Earth and what you left behind you?
No. I mean, I would miss, you know, mom and family, but Earth as a whole, you know, no, I wouldn't miss it. Hey, Grandpa. Hey, Grandma.
Bless your heart.
What do you know about Mars?
Me?
Yeah.
Nothing but the science fiction pictures. I don't know anything about it at all.
It's a planet that it doesn't have an atmosphere, but it has ice on it.
Oh yeah.
And it has certain geographical features that lead scientists to believe that it once had flowing water on the surface, which means if there's water, there's a big possibility that it could sustain life on Mars.
Oh, God.
And whether life is sustainable or not, I still want to go.
Yeah.
You know, so I can say I went to Mars.
Oh, yeah. But what if, if you don't return safely and you can't say that you went to Mars?
You know,
you say you went to not hell, but heaven.
I would hope somebody would write a book about me.
Yeah, well, they probably would. Yeah.
Well, why would they write a book about you just because you went to Mars?
You
got to do something up there.
If I was the first person to attempt to go to Mars.
That's history.
Oh, the first person.
Yeah, I don't.
Well, I'm sure you'll have a
If
clue.
I'm not first, I mean, I don't even know if I would want to go.
Oh, I see what you're saying. He wants to be the first.
I would still go, but I do want to be the first. I want to leave this planet.
What else has got you so enthused about it, besides being the first to go?
I mean, it's something new. Like, Earth there's not too much left to do here.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, for me to make my impact on history, you have to do something new. I just think we need to leave this planet. Like, I mean, we went to the moon with, you know, a few problems, but after that, we just stopped. Like, why not go farther?
The water is frozen up there, so you're saying that it may have been water there once.
It's still there. It's just there's an ice cap on Mars.
Okay, well, what makes people think that it's inhabitable?
Because there's water.
I know, but how?
Water and sunlight are pretty much all you need for life.
But you got no water, you got ice.
I mean,
hey.
You can make liquid out of ice.
Yes.
I really believe that humans, along with robots, will be able to make this a green picture. Eventually. Hundreds of years from now.
It's sort of like the desert land, but I don't know what you can make of that. You know, human beings can make of this, because you don't see like too much water.
But there's not a tree in sight. I mean, it's just like, could it be done? Could it be done?
Of course it can be done.
Well, Marcus, I don't know. I just feel like if God wanted some people there, that he'd have put some there.
But same in Arizona and New Mexico,
Vegas.
the desert, it's the same.
Yeah, they're in the cab. Someone's going down.
Okay, so first of all, I want to welcome you to the University Rover Challenge and thank you for participating. My name's Heather. I'll be one of the judges, and then the other judge will be John back there in the Red Mars Society.
Well, this competition is really a great way to get college students involved in building the next generation of Mars rovers. Get their hands dirty, get them out of the classroom working on some real hardware. These are lessons that you can't learn in a textbook. So.
Yeah, that's pretty close to him. Okay, so this is our point.
Would you go to Mars?
Yeah, I'd definitely go to Mars. Obviously, I mean, if it's only a one-way trip, I'd have to think about it and probably talk to a lot of people who, you know, care about me. But I think they would understand.
If you were to take your family with you, if you took the people that meant the most to you, I don't think it'd be that bad for a one-way trip. Now, if you left all your family and loved ones behind and you were an explorer, I think I'd want to come back. I mean, kind of makes sense, I think.
I would definitely go to Mars. And the one-way trip, I guess it'd have to be based on the crew that I go with. If I really didn't like the crew, it would definitely not motivate me to actually go. If I had the opportunity, I'd definitely go. Round trip, one way.
One way, you would stay there.
I would.
Would there be only Americans or maybe other people from other countries together with Americans? What do you think about this?
I hope there would be others.
I really do hope that it would be an international effort, but I'm not sure. It's sort of an open-ended question. We'll have to ask a non-American for that.
I think it'd be very similar to any time in history where there's been like the Mayflower or any ship that's went somewhere new. You've had 200 people, and that's it. And they're going somewhere new, and their life depends on the people that are there to keep that ship on course and keep it from sinking. I think the first 200 people on Mars have exactly the same problem.
I would love to see people on Mars. That would be the first step into the universe.
I think that someone on Mars would definitely be in anything I can imagine today would be the greatest thing of this century, would be to have someone on Mars, a human being walking around and telling us, hey, yeah, it really is red.
And yeah, no, there's no Martians.
We're standing in the Mars Yard at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. This is a place that we have made to look as much as possible like the Mars that we have seen from the Vikings and the Spirit landers. There's rocks all over the place, and it's here that we're testing out the Mars Science Laboratory rover, which will have to navigate around and over these rocks when it lands on Mars in 2010. Sooner or later, the human species, if it does not completely ruin the Earth and destroy itself here first, must reach out and go to some other place. The most likely eventual destinations are Earth-like planets in orbit around other stars, but in order to make stepping stones to go there, we must practice our technique and colonize somewhere else. Of all the places in our solar system, Mars is the most likely place to colonize. There are enormous problems associated with taking the first steps of going to Mars. The technology does not exist today to figure out how to enter, descend, and land on the surface of Mars. You see, on the Earth, there's enough atmosphere that we can slow down using parachutes and other deceleration techniques. On the Moon, there's no atmosphere, so it's straightforward to land. Mars is in between. There's enough atmosphere that you burn up if you come in and don't do anything about it, and there's not enough atmosphere to slow you down very well. So today, the techniques that we use to land things like the Mars Science Laboratory in Phoenix will not work for human beings. So one of the major things that we have to do is we have to figure out how to land human beings on Mars. I do think that someday there will be human beings living on Mars, but I believe the real diaspora of human beings will not be to Mars or to places inside this solar system. It will be to Earth-like planets around other nearby stars where the conditions for life are much more favorable, where water is liquid, where the temperatures are benign, where the atmosphere is much thicker than it is on Mars. Mars will be an important stepping stone. But if you look millennia into the future and you look for the eventual human fate, we are conditioned by the Earth. We have evolved for billions of years on the Earth. We are uniquely designed for this particular habitat. And out there, among the stars, are other planets like the Earth. Kepler, which is launched next March, will find them. And someplace, it is my belief, that is where the human imprint will be, on those other Earth-like planets around nearby stars.
This is the Hillside Settlement 1, designed by the Mars Foundation. The first 12 people to arrive on Mars would be living in these temporary living quarters brought from Earth, and they would build this settlement from the local materials found on Mars. It might take them several years, 6 or 8 years, to set up the manufacturing and power and gas separation units, and then to produce the material to build the rest of the base. While the 12 people are living here, they will be constructing the rest of the base. The first thing is to establish nuclear power units and the power production areas. This is where electricity is generated, but we also need a lot of heat for producing the plastics and the other materials. Using these manufacturing equipment, the crew would take the sand and the air and the water from the permafrost on Mars and manufacture the rest of the base. Much of the base is not visible. It's buried under this dirt. These masonry vaults, you would have your basic living space, dining areas, kitchen, laboratories, office space. These are skylights above. There would be mirrors to collect sunlight and pipe the sunlight down to skylights at the top of every dome. These are the greenhouses where you would grow all the food you would need to live on Mars. And separated from the manufacturing equipment, we have the bedrooms. There would be single and double bedrooms with windows looking out across the valley. The crew could put houseplants in front of the windows and have a nice contrast between the green inside and the red valley that they see. And it's separated. These bedrooms are separated as much as possible from the noisy equipment. They would plan to stay on Mars at least 10 years, probably 20 years. They could spend the rest of their life here. And as we see, it'll be a fairly comfortable place to live for the rest of your life. Here we are in the main living quarters of the hillside settlement. This is in the masonry vaults buried under the hillside. So this is a nice, spacious, comfortable place to live, and people would eventually have children and raise their children in a place like this. This is a Martian greenhouse constructed entirely from materials on Mars. In here you would grow everything you need to eat, such as tomatoes, cabbage, celery, lettuce, other greens. Over here you can grow grains for making bread, wheat, rice, and corn. Everything you need to live would be grown on Mars. In the 1970s, the Viking spacecraft photographed ancient riverbeds on Mars, and yet Mars seemed to be very dry today. We wondered where the water had gone. Now we know that there is significant water frozen as permafrost in the soil. The first people on Mars will obviously need water to drink. So one approach is, shortly after they arrive on Mars, they would mine this permafrost. They would drill multiple wells down into the frozen water in the soil, pump hot air down some of these wells to evaporate the ice. This steam would come up and would be condensed and processed. The water can then be used, obviously, for drinking, but also to grow food, and the water can be decomposed to make hydrogen, plastics, and fuel, such as methane. "400 years ago, some of our ancestors left Europe in boats such as the Mayflower and traveled to the Americas. There were a lot of hardships, but they were planning to spend the rest of their lives there. Some of them were married couples, families. There were even a few children. And they brought everything they needed on this ship to establish a new life. And I believe that we will go to Mars. The ships that we take will be rockets, obviously. And someday, far future, but I would hope it's in the near future, some of us will set up communities on Mars, and we will open up a new planet to life and civilization, just as our ancestors used ships like this to open up civilization here in the Americas.
What do you know about planet Mars?
Nothing. I know that it's red and they used to have an alien life form on there. Well, they said they did, but I'm not sure if it was true or not.
What do you know about planet Mars?
You don't know anything?
Would you like to go there?
No.
I see what you did. Hi. Sarah did good. What do you know about Mars?
Mars. It's red. It's has. There's no life.
And it's the
clouds.
next planet in the solar system after
Earth.
Why is it red?
Because it has a lot of clouds. And it's a red giant.
Would you like to go there?
Yeah. No.
What a spectacle.
The first Europeans mostly came to the New World to get away from other Europeans. Of course, later, they primarily came to expand their own horizons and to seek a place where they could be free. Mars will probably lure some people who want to get away from this. But I think most people will go there for the wonders of Mars itself and will think of themselves as pioneers in a new frontier. We simply don't know enough about Mars to tell how long it will take to establish a colony, but I'll bet it's less than a century. And I think once we're there, we'll never leave, just as was so for the Europeans in the New World. But more than that, we would begin the creation of a society on a grander scale than anything we have envisioned. That culture, emerging from an entire solar environment, will have perspectives and ideas we cannot envision. But that culture will certainly be a larger one. I think it will be a better one, and certainly also a wiser one. Mars will probably make people taller, simply because lower gravity will restrain our growth less. There will be many other kinds of changes we can't anticipate. The cultural changes will be more profound. Probably Mars, just like the early colonies in the New World, will be far more intensely communal. Europeans think of Americans as being much more individualistic, but they weren't that way at first. They took risks, yes, but they stuck together to survive in the New World. That kind of willingness to embrace the unknown and fail sometimes is crucial to the psychology the Martians will have to have. They will be communal, but they will not be in a welfare state. So it will be a very different society than anything we have on Earth now. And that's perhaps the greatest reason to do it. Only through new things do you learn great things. You cannot do anything that you do not first dream about. And you can't do anything if you fear a risk. Americans are about frontiers. We have lost our frontier, and the planet doesn't have very much frontier left. We will have to have new horizons. And the exploration of Mars, new landscapes, new perspectives, will give us a new point of view about ourselves. And that's what our species is about. We go forward not knowing exactly where we're headed. That's the genius of the species. We embrace risk, and we can go to the stars.
Would you go to Mars, Gregory?
I would certainly go to Mars in the first expedition if I could, because I think it's the greatest thing I could ever do. Also, the more significant thing I could accomplish. To help humanity extend its reach out of the narrow compass of one world is certainly an enormous event that will ring down through the corridors of history. I want to see the Martian sunsets and sunrises. I want to see 2 moons, tiny moons, streaking across the sky. I want to see the Earth hanging in the night sky as a blue-green glimmer. I want to watch the winds blow tornadoes and small hurricanes across the sands of Mars, and to see the red bluffs of the Marianas Valles, the Great Canyon. There are things we cannot even envision now that will be striking and beautiful to us. I'd like to see those, and I'd like to be part of an expedition that made those sights possible, not just for the people who go there, but for everyone who can watch on television the steady stream of brilliant images from a world we do not know, so that all of humanity can take part in the new perspectives and the great vistas that are waiting for us there and have been waiting now for over 4 billion years. We're the only animal that looks into the night sky and dreams of distant lands. We're the only one that has the possibility of going there. We are the only one that all the life forms on Earth can go to other worlds and take up new lives there. Life does not have to be confined to a single world. Not anymore. Not since the rise of humanity. The creature that looks at the night sky and dreams.
That on Mars, wouldn't you miss the animals, like the bisons?
It would be quite different on Mars, that's for sure. They are magnificent creatures out there, just gorgeous. But eventually, well, not our lifetime, but in the next generation or the generation after, they'll have animals up there. Might start out small with goats and stuff, but yeah, they'd be missed.
Would you still leave all this and go to Mars?
Oh, absolutely, I would go to Mars in a minute. It's just the ultimate adventure. You'd be a pioneer. You'd be starting something new, a new civilization there. And sure, this would all be missed again, but, you know, I've thought about it for, well, a lot of my life, whether I would really actually do it, and I definitely would, so. It's interesting looking around here, though, that one day Mars really might be like this, you know? It might take a long time, but I don't know. It'd be great to see a bison on Mars one day.
How many years do you think it would take to have animals on Mars?
Several hundred.
I think at first there's going to be just small protected areas, maybe domed areas, where they have a breathable atmosphere. Terraforming Mars is a project for hundreds, maybe possibly 1,000 years in the future. I don't doubt that it'll happen someday, not in my lifetime.
No, not in our lifetime.
Going there and then appreciating what you have when you come back home.
Right.
And to go there and know that you weren't going to come back home.
It's a hard thing. Well, how old do you think this is?
100 years?
Think it's 100? Wow.
But I'm sure our houses on Mars are going to look very much the same.
Well, the
100 years
greenhouses,
afterwards.
yeah. Oops.
Well, first people coming through are the frontiersmen, the explorers.
Yeah.
Then they open the way to the pioneers who start building crude little houses like this. And they open the way for the rest of us.
Maybe they'll have inflatable houses. Wow. So 1, 2, probably a living room, kitchen, kind of.
On Mars, we won't have the problem of American history has a big blot on it from the manifest destiny sweeping westward across the nation and pushing the indigenous populations off the continent.
Yep.
What we did to the Indians was you can't defend it.
Yep.
Undefendable.
Yep.
But we won't have that problem on Mars.
Right.
You look at the roof of the cabin, you remember how they used to lay sod out along the top of the cabin to keep it warm. Sometimes they'd feed animals up there.
It's true.
It's going to be much the same thing on Mars. You know, they'll take sandbags, they'll fill them up with regolith and load them on the roof to provide protection from radiation, some minor protection from asteroids.
So very similar technology there.
Just dealing with the same problems.
Exactly, exactly. Shelter.
Yep.
But still much more dangerous on Mars. I mean, we don't have these radiations on Earth.
Nope, but there's always something that can kill you. And once something kills you, you're dead, no matter whether it's radiation or dust storms here on Earth. Oh, you do the best you can with the technology that you've got.
Yeah. Yeah. And anyone who goes knows they're taking those risks. They're going to be prepared for that. They will be prepared to die on Mars. They will know.
I know the last time they asked the astronauts who's ready to go to Mars right now, I think almost every single one of them raised their hands.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a lot of them raised both hands.
Yep.
You know, there's a waiting list of people to climb the mountains.
Yep, that's true.
A lot of people want to go up Grand, want to go up every mountain there is. A lot of people want to go to Mars. There are challenges and we face them.
Yep. It's who we are.
Can I ask you a question? Yes. What do you know about, as the Native Americans, what do you know about Mars?
Mars.
Planet Mars.
Well, Mars is in the solar constellations that we also observe, and we don't know what it is made of, what if there's any life on Mars. But I know your kind of people are always trying to find new frontiers, and I hear talk that they're going to try to go up there. But that's one of the heavenly bodies that we look at all the time. That's about all I know about Mars. And I don't think there's any little green men up there.
Blue man, Matai. Yeah.
And coincidentally, today is Columbus Day.
Oh, Columbus, my goodness. Yeah, Columbus. I heard about him.
Yeah, and
yeah, my goodness.
I guess
damn.
Back in 1492, he was trying to find his way to India and got lost and landed on the shores of the Americas, thinking he was in India. He called the native people Indians.
Yeah.
And to this day, we're still known as Indian people, although we're not from India.
Yeah.
And while there was already thriving civilizations here, huh?
Yes.
People living here for a long time with advanced civilizations.
Yeah.
But the newcomers thought they found new land and decided they're going to claim it for themselves.
Yeah.
I sure hope they don't do that if they go to Mars, if they find little green men, not to take it away from them.
It's a long ways.
That's certainly
it's a long
way.
flight. Would you like to go to Mars one day? That's a good question.
If Mars were not so far away, I think one would contemplate going there. But even in advanced technology, it would probably take years and years to get there. You'd be old man by the time you got there. I like staying here, so I think I'll just read about it and look at them, but stay right here on Earth.
Yeah, I agree with Richard also. I wouldn't want to go traveling that far. You know, people are getting restless. The white people are restless. They're tired of the Earth. So people are looking at other places to go. So they want to go to Mars. But that's the way I figure it. The white people are tired of living here. They're totally tired. They're destroying it. They're killing Mother Earth. They're killing it. I'll tell you right now. In a few years, this planet is going to go through a change. A big, big, big change. This planet that we're standing on right now. It belongs to all of us to share. We're only here just for a little while to compare to other time and time.
A bit of advice for the travelers would be that find out what's there before you start changing it. You know, who knows, there might be life out there in the outer reaches of the galaxy. Treat everything with respect, you know. They don't have to take over and like they did here, try to bring all their own ways here. You know, respect what's there. That's a bit of advice for the traveler.
For thousands of years, Mars was a sacred power in human affairs, and its color made it a dangerous power, representing blood, anger, war, and the heart. It seemed, however, to be a world without life. And Mars has never ceased to be what it was to us from our very beginning, a great sign, a great symbol, a great power. And so we came here. It had been a power, now it became a place.
What was this?
This is from the very first introductory passages to Red Mars, which is the first of my 3 Mars books that make one novel, Red Mars, Green Mars, and Blue Mars. There is in the Mars community as it exists on Earth right now, there are people who are using it as an idea of escape or as a new place, like the New World was for Europeans 200 years ago. But it isn't really a good analogy. It's not easy to get there, and once you get there, it's not possible to live off the land. So it's actually a false analogy that kind of distorts the reality of the Martian situation. If you wanted an earthly analogy for what Mars is really like to us and human beings, you really ought to pick Antarctica. It's possible to go to Antarctica, although it's difficult. When you get there, you need protection or you'll die. There's a small scientific station that's been there now for 50 years, and human beings have been there for about 100 years, but it's not a major issue in human affairs. It's a very interesting scientific station, just like Mars will be, but it's not a new Earth that's just given to us. And one thing we haven't had for at least 100 years is a sense of new landscape. And new landscape is a basic desire in the human mind. We're a nomadic traveling species, and we spread over the surface of this world in a remarkably rapid time. There's a hunger in us to see some new landscape. And then beyond that, Mars does exist as a long-term potential for human habitation. And how long-term that is an open question. It depends how interested we were as a species. And it depends how healthy Terran culture is. If Earth's culture is doing well, then Mars could actually become a new home. Everything that happens on Mars is going to depend on what's going on Earth. If we don't solve the climate change problems, the population problems, the environmental damage to doing this planet, Mars will never happen as a human place. It just won't. But if we solve the problem of sustainability here on Earth, then Mars becomes a fantastic opportunity to do something like building a cathedral in the Middle Ages, some kind of architectural religious act where you're making a new space for human beings to live and to show a kind of devotion to the universe, because this would be a combination of a spiritual project and a physical project. All the people interested in Mars right now on Earth are utopians, and they're placing their utopian desires onto the Martian landscape. The idea is this: Earth is so messed up, so stuck in its traditions and its structures and its human institutions that we can never get free of it, and it's doomed to only partial success at best, but never a good society. We need a fresh start. Almost all utopias begin with a fresh start, and there's nothing fresher than going to the planet next door. I think it's really important for everybody who loves Mars today, the Martians that exist already, that are interested in it and like to think about it, to keep in mind that it can be used in two ways, just like utopian thinking, just like science fiction. It can either be used as an escape, where you get away from earthly problems and concern and have a kind of fantasy space where you can control things, make things new, make them right, the whole utopian dream. Or else you can use Mars as a way to understand that we live on a planet too, that this planet is as interesting as Mars, and it's as difficult to survive on once you've started the industrial processes that we've started. You've got to think about Earth first. You've got to think that Mars is an idea that helps us to understand that we live on a planet. It's a really good idea. It's a beautiful idea. And it's going to be a beautiful part of the human story if we get through this century okay. If we are suffering the problems of climate change as badly as we might, if we don't deal with climate change, Mars becomes a footnote. It already has become a footnote. And it's not at all obvious that we are going to respond quickly enough to avoid a huge catastrophe on Earth. This is really the biggest question of our century. And so if Mars can help with that, then good for Mars. But if Mars can't help for that, then it's a project for another century.
So if I were on Mars, what would I miss from Earth? Well, I'd miss Cape Cod Bay and oceans, free-flowing rivers. I'd miss the birds that are flying freely in a large sky. I'd miss long walks through the woods and trees. Those of you back on Earth, take care of the Earth. It's a wonderful place. It's the best home we have. You don't realize how hard it is to build a good world to live in. So don't ruin it.
So what will we say to humanity when we're getting ready to leave for Mars? I'm just not great at inspiring speeches at all.
And I hate long goodbyes. I guess take care of your planet, water the plants, feed the cats, and we'll see you on Mars.
Bye.
When I go into the deep places of Earth, I always say goodbye to the sun as I go. And I would say hello to it when I come out. And I think as I was departing for Mars, I would say goodbye to the Earth in the same spirit that I say goodbye to the sun, with the expectation that I would see Earth again. And I would ask the rest of the inhabitants that I left behind to please take care of Earth until I came back again and was reunited with her once again.
Friends and family, I've already said goodbye to all of you, but I want to leave you with something a little more than a goodbye, a personal message to let you know that you have all been wonderful influences on my life. You have sculpted me into the man that I am today. I appreciate everything you've done for me, and I will make you proud in the things that I'm going to do on Mars. You can watch as this rocket blast off and remember that I'm sitting on top of it and I'm having a good time. So you should have just as much fun as I have. Celebrate the fact that I accomplished a dream this big, that I have gotten to the point where I could die a happy man.
If I was leaving tomorrow to go to Mars forever, this would be my message. First, I would like to send out my love to the wonderful people in my life, my friends, my family, everyone who's done such wonderful things and had such wonderful experiences with me. Next, I would just say I'd like how much I'm gonna miss this place, this beautiful Earth full of wonderful life and amazing landscapes. There's never gonna be another place like it. And yet, I look forward to an adventure full of excitement, to go to a new planet, Mars, and build a new civilization. Never appreciate the beauty of a place until you leave it. And the natural beauty of Earth it's amazing. I hope the rest of the people on this planet realize what they are surrounded by and the gift they've been given. And I hope that they do their best to preserve it and enjoy it. And leave it there pristine for their children to enjoy for generations to come.
Ah
heaven's heart.